everyone. I'm with the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County, and my name is Rachel Bentley, and I am the program manager and senior staff attorney for the Consumer Advocacy Unit. And I'm moderating today's webinar on how to start your own small business. And the main presenter today is DaVatrice Lindsey, and she is with our Community Economic Development Project and Neighborhood Entrepreneurial Law Project, and we're all with the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my project. The Consumer Advocacy Unit. So CAU is what we call the Consumer Advocacy Unit. Currently exists as a result of the generous support of the Community Foundation for Palm Beach and Martin counties. The webinar was made possible, this webinar today was made possible through the grant awarded to the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County by the Community Foundation for Palm Beach and Martin counties. The Consumer Advocacy Unit serves small businesses who have been affected by COVID-19 and or who need assistance incorporating. And that's why we are co-hosting this webinar today. We also serve low-income consumers residing in Palm Beach County, facing housing or consumer issues as a result of COVID-19, Clean Slate Initiative matters, and consumer debt lawsuits. Consumer issues that we assist with include matters relating to identity theft, garnishment, foreclosure, debt collection, student loans, and other legal issues that violate state or federal consumer protection laws. Clean Slate Initiative matters that we help with include assisting individuals who qualify for sealing or expungement of their criminal arrest record with applying with the FDLE for sealing or expungement of their criminal arrest record. And there's our hotline number is going to appear again at the end of this presentation, but there it is. That's Legal Aid's number 561-655-8944 extension 361. I am going to now introduce our distinguished speaker shortly. Before I do so, I do want to make a few housekeeping announcements. Throughout this presentation, if you have questions, please refrain from saying them out loud and put them in the chat box. I will jump back in at the end and moderate the question session. So either chat your questions throughout or save them towards the end, the question and answer session. That's when the questions will be addressed. Okay, so today we have DaVatrice Lindsey, and she's going to be our panelist. She studied information technology and international business at Marquette University. She was selected to participate in the Ronald McNair Scholars Program and was a recipient of the Donald Massey Scholarship. Ms. Lindsey pursued her passions for the arts, technology, and business by attending Florida International University College of Law. While there, she obtained a great deal of experience in civil law and corporate law and served as the public relations chair for the Black Law Student Association and the Christian Legal Society. DaVatrice graduated on the Dean's List and as a certified LexisNexis research professional. Currently, she volunteers with the Riviera Beach Community Outreach and the March of Dimes. DaVatrice strongly believes that it is important to give back, and that is why she aids others in creating small businesses, ensuring longevity for their small business, and protecting their talents as well as ideas as an attorney with the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to our panelist, Ms. Lindsey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. You're too kind for that introduction. As Rachel stated, I am the attorney for the Neighborhood Entrepreneurial Law Project, which is known as NOLE. It launched in 2018 for individuals and for-profit small businesses. We provide residents of the Palm Beach County area the tools and knowledge to be successful in starting and or owning their small business. We also supply limited financial assistance for business registration, logo design, home occupation affidavit, and more for eligible applicants. And we furnish webinars and podcasts regarding important business topics. Next slide, please.
Thank you.
So the different business structures that I will be covering today are the sole proprietorship, the limited liability company, also known as LLC, the C corporation, S corporation, general partnership, limited partnership, joint venture, and nonprofit. And then I'll go into the starting of your home-based business. Next slide, please. All right, so the sole proprietorship. A sole proprietorship is the simplest and most common structure chosen to start a business. It is an unincorporated business owned and ran by one individual with no distinction between the business and you, the owner. You are entitled to all profits and are responsible for all your business debts, losses, and liabilities. You do not have to take any formal action to form a sole proprietorship. As long as you are the owner, this status automatically comes from your business activities. But like all businesses, you need to obtain the necessary licenses and permits. Regulations vary by industry and locality. If you choose to operate under a name different than your own, you will most likely have to file a fictitious name, also known as an assumed name, trade name, or DBA name, short for doing business as. You must choose an original name. It cannot already be claimed by another business. Because you and your business are one and the same, the business itself is not taxed separately. The sole proprietorship income is your income. Next slide, please. The next structure I will cover is the limited liability company. A limited liability company is a hybrid type of legal structure that provides the limited liability features of a corporation and the tax efficiencies and operational flexibility of a partnership. The owners of an LLC are referred to as members. Members can consist of single individual, one owner, two or more individuals, corporations, or other LLCs. But keep in mind that under Florida law, a court may order a judgment debtor to surrender all right, title, and interest in the debtor's single-member LLC to satisfy an outstanding judgment. Practitioners were thereafter advised to form limited liability companies with multiple members whenever possible. So basically what that means is if you're a single-member LLC, the creditor can pierce the corporate veil and come after you for the debt that's owed. So if you owe any debt or something of that nature, it may be more beneficial to actually have more than one member. Unlike shareholders in a corporation, LLCs are not taxed as a separate business entity. Instead, all profits and losses are passed through the business to each member of the LLC. LLC members report profits and losses on their personal federal tax returns, just like the owners of a partnership would. There are 3 rules that your LLC name needs to follow. It must be different from an existing LLC in your state. It must indicate that it's an LLC such as LLC, L.C., or limited company after the name. And it must not include words restricted by your state, such as bank and insurance and so forth. The Articles of Organization is a simple document that legitimizes your LLC and includes information like your business name, address, and the names of its members. Once your business is registered, you must obtain a business licenses and permits. And as I mentioned before, the regulations vary. In the eyes of the federal government, an LLC is not a separate tax entity. So the business itself is not taxed. Instead, all federal income taxes are passed on to the LLC's members and are paid through their personal income tax. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the partnerships. I will cover the partnership as a whole, and then I will dive into the general partnership, limited partnership, and joint venture. A partnership is a single business where two or more people share ownership. Each partner contributes to all aspects of the business, including money, property, labor, or skill. In return, each partner shares in the profits and losses of the business. Because partnerships entail more than one person in the decision-making process, it's important to discuss a wide variety of issues up front and to develop a legal partnership agreement. This agreement should document how future business decisions will be made, including how the partners will divide profits, resolve disputes, change ownership, bring in new partners or buy out current partners, and how to dissolve the partnership. Although partnerships agreements are not legally required, they are strongly recommended, and it is considered extremely risky to operate without one. Okay, so let's get into the different types of partnerships. First, we have the general partnership. The general partnership assumes that profits, liability, and management duties are divided equally among partners. If you opt for an unequal distribution, the percentages assigned to each partner must be documented in the partnership agreement. Now we're going to move on to the limited partnership, also known as partnership with limited liability. These are more complex than general partnerships. Limited partnerships allow partners to have limited liability as well as limited input with management decisions. These limits depend on the extent of each partner's investment percentage. Limited partnerships are attractive to investors of short-term projects. Lastly, we have the joint ventures. Joint ventures act as general partnerships, but for only a limited period of time or for one single project. Partners in a joint venture can be recognized as an ongoing partnership if they continue the venture, but they must file as such. To form a partnership, you must register your business with the state, a process generally done with your Secretary of State's office. You will also need to establish your business name. For partnerships, your legal name is the name given in your partnership agreement or the last names of the partners. If you choose to operate under a name different than the officially registered name, you will most likely have to file a fictitious name, as I mentioned before. Once your business is registered, you must obtain business licenses and permits, which vary. And most businesses will need to register with the IRS, register with state and local revenue agencies, and obtain a tax ID number or permit. Next slide, please. All right, so next we have the C corporation. A corporation, sometimes referred to as a C corporation, is an independent legal entity owned by shareholders. This means that the corporation itself, not the shareholders that own it, are held legally liable for the actions and debt the business incurs. Corporations are more complex than other business structures because they tend to have costly administrative fees and complex tax and legal requirements. Because of these issues, corporations are generally suggested for established, larger companies with multiple employees. For businesses in that position, corporations offer the ability to sell the ownership shares in the business through stock offerings. Going public through an initial public offering, known as IPO, is a major selling point in attracting investment capital and high-quality employees. When starting a C corporation, the following are primary requirements. So you have to have the board of directors and shareholders. They must hold meetings regularly. Initial shareholders are to receive a formal issue of their stocks. There must be sufficient capital via investors that demonstrates how the corporation has adequate funding. The corporation must meticulously keep business records. Such business records are kept separate from the individual records of the owners. So in forming a C corporation, what you want to do is contact the Comptroller Public Accounts Office. It's in Tallahassee, and request that it provides you with the proper forms needed to start a C corporation. Then you would want to determine the filing fees in Florida, including the fee for filing the Articles of Incorporation. Next, start considering the logistics and strategies of your business. Like, what will you call your corporation? If that name is taken, what else will you call it? If you are absent, who will run the company and make decisions in your absence? Are there plans to publicly trade stock? Keep these and similar questions in mind and think them through. You want to get as many of them answered and in place before starting the incorporation process. Develop a system of taking board meeting minutes and recordation process. These records must be filed and available on site as part of the official records of the corporation. Make sure to create a draft very clear and comprehensive of your bylaws. So what the bylaws are, they are the internal legal rules applicable to a corporation and must be followed by the company, its directors, shareholders, and officers when conducting business. They are applicable to both for-profit and nonprofit corporations. State statutes govern what bylaws can and cannot say and do. And while there are similar considerations throughout the country, every state is different. So it's important to consider state-specific laws when drafting your bylaws. In addition, you may be required to fill out additional forms and file these forms with the Secretary of State. For example, you may be required under certain circumstances to complete and file a financial report. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're moving on to the S corporation. An S corporation, sometimes referred to as an S corp, is a special type of corporation created through an IRS tax election. An eligible domestic corporation can avoid double taxation, once to the corporation and again to the shareholders, by electing to be treated as an S corporation. What makes the S corporation different from a traditional corporation, which we just went over, the C corp, is that profits and losses can pass through to your personal tax return. Before you form an S corporation, determine if your business will qualify under the IRS stipulations. Next slide, please. The last business structure is a nonprofit. Most nonprofits are 501c3 corporations, which means that they are formed for religious, charitable, scientific, literary, or educational purposes, and are eligible for federal and state tax exemptions. To create a 501c3 tax-exempt organization, first, you need to form a Florida corporation. Then you need to apply for tax-exempt status from the IRS and the state of Florida. And you can find that information on the IRS's website. In Florida, your nonprofit corporation must have 3 or more directors who are not related to each other. The name of your nonprofit corporation cannot be the same as the name of another nonprofit corporation on file with the Florida Department of State. To see if your proposed name is available, you can search their name database. In Florida, your nonprofit corporation name must contain one of the following words: corporation, incorporation, or their abbreviations. It may not contain the word company or its abbreviation CO period. Every Florida nonprofit corporation must have an agent for service of process in that state. This is an individual or corporation that agrees to accept legal papers on the corporation's behalf if it is sued. The agent must have a physical street address in Florida, not a PO box. You must create and file nonprofit or articles of incorporation with the Florida Department of State Division of Corporations. The incorporator must sign the articles, and the registered agent must sign its consent to act as agent for service of process. To receive 501c3 tax-exempt status from the IRS, your corporation must have certain specific language in the articles, and you can find that on the IRS's website as well. You'll need to prepare bylaws that comply with Florida law and contain the rules and procedures your corporation will follow for holding meetings, electing officers and directors, and taking care of other corporate formalities required in Florida. Your first board meeting is usually referred to as the organizational meeting of the board. Your nonprofit corporation must obtain a federal employee identification number, and that's also known as an EIN. Depending on the type of activities your nonprofit intends to carry on and where it is located, it may need to obtain a local and/or state business license or permit. Florida nonprofit corporations must file an annual report with the Department of State between January 1st and May 1st. And that's of every year. Now that you have created your nonprofit corporation, you can obtain your federal and Florida state tax exemptions. Depending on your activities and the size of your organization, you may need to register with the Florida Department of Agricultural and Consumer Services, that's also known as FDACS, before doing any fundraising in the state. So I included on this slide a checklist just to kind of make things more concise if you want to form a nonprofit. So you would choose the directors for your nonprofit, choose a name for your nonprofit, appoint a registered agent, file Florida nonprofit articles of incorporation, prepare nonprofit bylaws, hold a meeting of your board of directors, obtain an employer identification number, which is known as EIN, obtain a business license, file annual reports, file Form 1023 for federal tax exemption, apply for Florida tax exemption, and lastly, complete other state reporting and registration requirements. Okay, so now that we have a grasp on the different business structures, I'll move into starting a lucrative home-based business. Due to the pandemic, people have lost wages, completely lost their jobs, and or may be in need of supplemental income. As a result, starting a home-based business may be a good way to turn that skill or hobby into income. Next slide, please. What we can do at the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County is assist you with the following steps: deciding the business structure that suits your business the best, picking a business name that is not in use, registering your business with the state, obtaining a federal employee identification number, also known as EIN, opening company bank accounts, and obtaining business licenses and permits. I listed a couple of home-based business ideas that are very lucrative right now despite the COVID-19, and I'll just go over a few of those: website tester, online tutor, mass creator and distributor, photographer, recipe creator, translator, and designer. Next slide, please. So we went over all of the business structures for the most part, but the one that I'm going to focus on for the registering of your business with the state is the limited liability company, also known as the LLC. And just to refresh your memory, even though we just went over it, a limited liability company is a hybrid type of legal structure that provides the limited liability features of a corporation and the tax efficiencies and operational flexibility of a partnership. The owners of an LLC are referred to as members. Depending on the state, the members can consist of a single individual, one owner, two or more individuals, corporations, or other LLCs. Unlike the shareholders in a corporation, LLCs are not taxed as a separate business entity. Instead, all profits and losses are passed through the business to each member of the LLC. LLC members report profits and losses on their personal federal tax returns, just like the owners of a partnership would. Next slide, please. And this just basically goes over again how if you have any creditors out there, you may want to form a multi-member LLC because they can pierce the corporate veil and come after you to satisfy that debt. Next slide, please. All right. So in regards to registering your LLC, I will cover filing options, payment options, processing dates, fees, and the mandatory fields of the Articles of Organization. Next slide, please. So your filing options are: you can file online with a credit card, you can complete the fillable PDF form using your computer, so you would print it and sign it, mail it to the Division of Corporations with the required payment, or you can print the PDF form and then complete it using a blue or black ink pen, sign it, and then mail it to the Division of Corporations with the required payment. Next slide, please. So your payment options are that you can make all checks payable to the Florida Department of State. Check and money orders must be payable in U.S. currency drawn from a U.S. bank. Credit cards accepted for filing online are MasterCard, Visa, Discover, and American Express. Next slide, please. So these are old processing dates, as you can see, but I just wanted to give you an example. What you want to do is pull the processing days right before you file to give you a good idea. But just keep in mind that if you file electronically, let's say you file on Thursday evening, you'll probably get your registration by Monday evening via email. And this can all be found on SunBiz. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of the fees that are involved, you have the Articles of Organization, which is $100, the Registered Agent Designation, which is $25, the Certified Copy, which is optional, is $30, the Certificate of Status, which is also optional, which is $5. So if you go for all of these options, you're looking at $160, but if you just go for what's required, that's $125. Next slide, please. The mandatory fields of the Articles of Organization are the LLC name, principal place of business address, mailing address, registered agent name and address, registered agent signature, manager, authorized representative, effective date, signature, and correspondence name and email. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for the LLC name, the name must be distinguishable on the records of the Department of State. So do a preliminary search by name before submitting your documents. The name must include limited liability company, LLC, or L period, C period at the end, or make sure you adhere to the rules depending on the business structure that you decide to form. Do not use or assume the name is approved until you receive a filing acknowledgement from the Division of Corporations. Next slide, please. All right, so the addresses that are required are the principal place of business address, the mailing address overall, and then the registered agent name and address. For the principal place of business address, the street address of the LLC's principal office, the mailing address overall is the LLC's mailing address, if different from the principal address, and PO boxes are acceptable. And lastly, for the registered agent name and address, the individual or legal entity that will accept service or process on behalf of the business entity is the registered agent. A business entity with an active Florida filing or registration may serve as a registered agent. An entity cannot serve as its own registered agent. However, an individual or principal associated with the business may serve as a registered agent. The registered agent must have a physical street address in Florida, so PO boxes are not permitted. Next slide, please. So the two signatures are the registered agent signature and the signature overall. The registered agent's signature is the registered agent must sign the application. The signature confirms the agent is familiar with and accepts the obligations. If a business entity is designated as the agent, a principal or individual of that entity must sign to accept the obligations. If you're filing online, the registered agent must type their name in the signature block. Electronic signatures have the same legal effect as original signatures. But keep in mind, typing someone's name, which is basically their signature, without their permission constitutes forgery. In regards to the signature overall, the application must be signed by at least one person acting as the authorized representative. If filing online, the authorized representative must type their name in the signature block. Electronic signatures have the same legal effect as original signatures. Next slide, please. Okay, so I included effective date, even though it isn't mandatory, just because I want to make sure that it's clear. It can be kind of confusing. So an LLC's existence begins on the date the Division of Corporation receives and files your articles, unless your articles of organization specify an acceptable alternate effective date. LLCs can specify an effective date that is no more than 5 business days prior to or 90 days after the date the document is received by their office. So most people leave it blank, but if you do want to fill it in, make sure you adhere to the 90 days after or the 5 business days prior. Next slide, please. The last mandatory field is the correspondence name and email. Please provide a valid email address If filing online, the filing acknowledgement and certification, if any, will be emailed to this address. All future email communications will be sent to this address, so make sure that you keep your email address up to date. Next slide, please.
Okay, so do we have any questions? Thank you so much. That was really, really great and informative. I'm gonna look at the chat.
My pleasure, Rachel. Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you, Forrest Wilson, for informing everyone that now would be the time to ask questions. So if anyone has a question, please feel free to write it in the chat box. I wanted to also make sure everyone watching knows that if you need help starting your own business, please feel free to contact us at the Legal Aid Society of Palm Beach County. Currently, as I explained at the beginning of the presentation, the Consumer Advocacy Unit, through generous funding from the Community Foundation for Palm Beach and Martin counties, is helping assist with starting small businesses and helping small businesses that have been affected by COVID-19. So I have provided the Consumer Advocacy Unit's phone number here. It's 561-655-8944, extension 361. We will be working together with Ms. Lindsey, who obviously has a great grasp of the subject matter and is fantastic to help you, or try and help you as best as we can. I also included my email address here if you have any other questions. It's rbentley@legalaidpbc.org. And I did get a question about asking if I would please go back to the first 5 slides, and would it be possible to have a copy of the presentation? And I can do that at the end. If you would like a copy of the presentation, you can send me an email and I can email it to you, or you can send to Keisha Miles, who is the email address associated with when you registered. But my email's here, and please feel free to email me, rbentley@legalaidpbc.org, and I can email to you. I see this question here. Hello, did the presenter say that we need 3 directors in order to start a nonprofit business? So I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Lindsey.
All right.
And also make my way back to the first 5 slides while you answer.
Okay. Do you want to bring up the nonprofit checklist slide first, or the other slide? The 5 slides back.
I will give it a shot here.
Okay. All right, so in the checklist, it is general regarding the board of directors, but just keep in mind that you have to have 3. That is the bare minimum. You can have more, and they cannot be related to each other. But that is a part of forming your nonprofit in Florida.
All right, I'm trying to get back to the PowerPoint here. Bear with me. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Okay, so did you still want me to go back to a specific slide? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I really appreciate your assistance with the slides. I think someone may have had a question on the 5th slide. They said 5 slides back. Okay.
So I was told they wanted to see the first 5 slides. So this was just,
Oh,
you know, the intro, and then this is about the Consumer Advocacy Unit, and then this is about NELP. So I imagine the substantive information regarding business structures, there's the different business structures here. Okay, I'll leave it here for a few seconds.
okay, thank you.
And then I'll go to slide 5, about a sole proprietorship. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to the contact us slide so you have the information in the event you want to email for the PowerPoint or ask any other questions. All right, well, thank you all for joining us today. And unless anyone else has any other questions or anything to add, I think that's it for today.